Hey everybody, this is Mark from Big Man. Today I want to go over password theory. We're not actually going to talk about specific passwords, but we're going to talk about password theory. There's a list that comes out every year based on websites that get hacked, which is always Yahoo at least. Some years other places get hacked, but Yahoo gets hacked pretty much constantly. I would recommend not using them. But from that list of, or from those hacks, people put together the list of the most used passwords. So these are passwords that, amongst millions of compromised accounts, these were the passwords that were used the most. And I'm going to show you a list first, and we're going to make fun of them for just a second. And then I'm going to talk about some possible ways you can not use these terrible passwords. So I'm going to switch over to the list. So these are some of them. And actually, interspersed with the top list here, you can see that top one there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And these are in the order of popularity. So there was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then there were variations of that where it'd be like 1 through 8, 1 through 9, 1 through 0, etc. Like 1, 2, 3, 4. But apart from just the numbers ones I put on here, the other top 20 or so, which was password, football, QWERTY, that's the top row of the keyboard, princess, login, welcome, solo. So right now, as you're hanging your head, as you see your password displayed for the world, I want to talk about how we can better use passwords, or ways you can use passwords that aren't these terrible, terrible passwords. By the way, you can see towards the bottom here, someone was clever and made password, but the O is a 0. Those count as the most used passwords, so you're not the only clever one. But what are some good passwords? Well, let me show you a list of a couple ideas. So here we go. These are a couple I was just typing up. I think, first of all, longer passwords make them more safe. They're harder to guess by certain types of ways that people try to guess passwords. And then the more variation there is with capitalization, punctuation, weird markup items such as like here, this thing. If you hold shift and press 6, what is that thing? I've never used it in real life, but it's great in passwords. These are things you can do to better protect yourself. And I always tell people that the best password is one you're going to remember. I cannot tell you how many times I lift up someone's keyboard and there on a Post-it note is every important password that I've ever helped them make, and it's just there for the world to see. Now I keep my passwords encrypted in a very safe way, and we'll go into that in maybe a future video. But today I just want to talk about this password theory. These passwords on the screen here, like silly hyphen umbrella, you see I've I alternated between lowercase on the first word and uppercase all on the second word. Or then the second one there, I just picked two words at random, put a period in between them, and then added some numbers. Uncle, father, Oscar, I put some dashes in between them, variated again, that capitalization. So these are passwords that if any of these three passwords were mine, I don't think I'd have much trouble remembering it. And I definitely think that it's significantly harder to guess than 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Another thing that you can do is use a password manager. Now that's something we're going to talk about in a later episode, but one thing to remember is the longer the better. And so a lot of my passwords personally are actually gibberish. I have no idea what most of my passwords are because I use a program to generate a password and then another program to store the passwords. But again, the safest type of password is one you remember. And then the other thing that's very important, and this is how a lot of iCloud accounts got compromised or supposedly got compromised in the last month or so, was Yahoo gets hacked. And someone's login at Yahoo is, user123@yahoo.com. And then they use the password, password. Well, then we know their Yahoo login, but perhaps they signed into MailChimp.com. And their MailChimp login is their Yahoo email address plus that same password. Or their iCloud login was that same email address, and they're using that same password. So my second and probably the most important point is never use the same password across multiple sites. And I know you're saying to yourself, but how will I ever remember my passwords? Well, there are a couple different ways to do it, and I'll show you one that is not my favorite and one that I think works a little bit better. So one way that people remember their passwords for different sites is they might have one core password. Let's say that password is Bluth. And so the password is Bluth, but then when they're logging into iCloud, they might add IC at the end. So Bluth IC for iCloud. If they're logging into Gmail, they might make it GM at the end, something like that. I have clients that do this. I recommend against doing this model. The reason is, it's not that hard to guess. I'm thinking of one client in particular where all of his passwords are the same formula, and I can almost always guess how he appended that formula onto whatever new service he's using or new device he's configured. So what I would recommend is a variation of that technique where you may have one core password that you use, but then you add more than just GM or IC for iCloud, and you basically make it a little harder to guess than that. Like maybe something like this, or so that was the core word Bluth, and then EYE, and then all capitals CLOUD, and then for Gmail you might do something like that, like. So phonetically, so that's GEMALE. So phonetically, it might work out so that you might say it out loud the same way. But if someone's trying to type it, that's not how they're going to guess. And again, formulas are great. Never share your formula. If that particular client I mentioned earlier had never shared his formula with me, I would never have been able to guess what the next password was based on the existing formula. So again, very important that you have a password that is unique to that service. Your iCloud password should not be the same as your Gmail password, and that should never be the same as your password for that shipping website you had to use once 3 years ago and you don't even remember using it a second time, because those are the sorts of things that can get breached as well. Or that new app you signed up for, well, that new app might get breached in 4 years or something like that. And so if we're using the same passwords across the board, we're becoming increasingly risky every day. So I would definitely recommend remembering your passwords and changing your passwords. And these are some examples of passwords that might be a little bit easier to remember. Is 2 words you remember, maybe 3 words you remember, separate them with hyphens. Make one of them capitalized. Add a couple meaningful numbers, maybe not your house number or the last 4 digits of your phone number, but maybe, oh, my first date with my wife was April 17th, so I'm going to make this password be Bluth 417. I can't type, but 417, something like that. So this is just kind of the beginning of password theory. And again, these are some of my opinions, but they're based on opinions spending many years in this world. So I do want to just recommend very strongly that you be safe online. Stuff gets hacked all the time. And we in the technology field, we want to keep you safe, but we can only do so much. If you're going to use the same passwords and you're going to never change those passwords because you don't want to be bothered to remember, well, you may get hacked. So, not trying to scare, just trying to encourage. Be careful out there. There's a lot of people trying to get your info. Thanks.